So that was the Eithin B B, and I was wondering if the guy who runs it is called Craig Eithin. He's a local Welsh lad, very friendly, welcomed me as soon as I arrived. Breakfast was really nice. I wouldn't say it was the nicest on the whole trip, but it was nice, and very conveniently located B&B. Because it's right near the Holyhead port. It's 7-8 minutes ride from the Holyhead port, and yet it is secluded here, tucked away, so you don't feel worried leaving your bike parked up in an area like this particularly. So yeah, all things considered, by far the most convenient accommodation in terms of distance from port. And ferry arrived in late yesterday because it was delayed by 2 hours, which meant it arrived at 8, so I didn't get here until about 8:30. Time it took to get out, disembark and get across here. So although it was strange, because when I got off the ferry last night I wasn't particularly tired. I felt like I could ride for 2 hours, probably because I'd been well rested up on the ferry. But I tell you what, it did hit me around 10 o'clock at night, because it was an early start yesterday. Today, not such an early start. Wide awake at 5, 6, but didn't actually have to get out of bed until 7. So today is the day I'm riding home, bringing an end to this island odyssey, which has proved to be an island and Wales, because today I'm cutting right across Wales. I've purposely avoided going home on the motorway because that doesn't float my boat particularly, although it's handy when you're in a rush. So instead, I think I might be going past the Snowdonia park, which is somewhere I could return to on a future tour. Very fond memories of North Wales, actually, from my childhood. I remember the slate quarries and all the rest of it. What was interesting is in the B&B, in the dining room at breakfast, just there, the guy actually had a video on loop. It was all videos about, fun facts about Wales. So that was quite nice, watching that over breakfast, kind of whetting my appetite to get back across here next year, maybe. It could well be next year, because if things are still as they are now, I still have the bike and the finances to keep going with the touring, which hopefully I will. And I think I quite fancy the Isle of Man next year. And knowing me, I'll be booking everything way in advance, like I always do. So I guess I might be in a position to decide on that within a couple of months. So I wonder if I could use this journey home just to talk about what I've learned from the island experience, really. And just hoping this is not going to come out too windy on the audio, because it is really quite gusty here and horrible weather again. I'm just hoping it's actually been raining at home, because otherwise my squash plants are all going to be dead. It didn't look like it really was raining today at home, or maybe just a light shower. So we'll see. Yeah, so how did I approach Ireland, or what was my thinking on Ireland before the trip, and how has that changed after this tour? So before, I actually expected the Wild Atlantic Way route to be less well developed than the NC 500. Say worse roads, less filling stations maybe, you know, less places to grab a bite to eat, less geared up for the touring, but in the end I would say the opposite was true. Now, on the day when I was supposed to go to the right to the far-flung corners of the peninsulas, I was unlucky to be hit by horrendous rain, and I got soaked through, and I managed to get to soak 3 pairs of gloves. It was that bad, even with these mitts on. And so I didn't get to go quite as fully far remote as I was expecting to, although I did get as far as Dingle, and I did get as far as Ballybanyan, Waterville, on the previous day when the weather was good. So perhaps, you know, I might have hit some areas that were much more remote, but from what I've seen, my overall impression is it's slightly better than the NC 500 in terms of infrastructure, and it's perhaps a tad less busy. One of the places really did get quite busy. Was it Ballybanyan? Or maybe Waterville? One of those two. Because all the Irish are on holiday. Not only is it kids' holiday at school, but it's also the bank holiday, as in the UK for that matter. So all the Irish were on the move, and despite the bad weather, they were all going along the something lane, which I've forgotten the name of, which was one of the optionals on my list. In fact, I got chatting to a guy in the filling station, and he said try and go on that route, but he could see that I wasn't going to make it on that day because of the rain. So it was busy at that point, at that kind of choke point, and had it been a bright sunny day like the previous day, maybe it would have been even worse, you know, arguably. Which is never really a big problem when you're on a bike, but it does still slow you down a little, somewhat. So that's impression number one. Impression number two, I again, like an idiot, took 2 fuel bottles full of petrol. Honestly, if you're thinking of doing that, if you're thinking of bringing the fuel bottles, the Oxford fuel bottles like the ones I have, or even a jerry can, honestly, don't bother. Same thing as what I said for the NC 500. You don't need it. As long as you do what I do, and see, I'm a bit over the top. As soon as my tank hits half a tank full or half tank empty, depending on how you look at life, that's it, I fill it up. So doing that, I never had any problems. If you're the type of guy that likes to run right until your fuel gauge is red, then maybe you could have had a problem. So yeah, just fill up, like in Scotland, fill up whenever you have the opportunity. Psychologically, it's a little bit less of a hit because it's costing you €8 instead of 15 or whatever. Let me give my impression of the Irish people. They're friendlier than the English, marginally friendlier than the English, I would say. But just bear in mind, you know, you're on a tourist route there with the Wild Atlantic Way, so some are going to make the effort more than others. So there's people in this life who enjoy their jobs, and there's people who are really are in the wrong job. One or two barmen who didn't acknowledge, didn't chat. Other than that, everybody else was friendly. And in fact, in the filling stations, a number of occasions I was chatting with local Irish lads. They may well have been bikers, actually. That might be another reason. Now, all the Irish bikers, and you can tell from their number plates, they all wave at you. They don't feel threatened by the invasion of tourists. In fact, they seem to be welcoming. Okay, let's give the verdict on the food. Well, I actually love Irish food. It is in some ways quite similar to English food. You know, when they say an Irish breakfast, it's much the same as an English breakfast, really, except for your toast is probably going to be Irish soda bread, which, if I'm honest, I prefer. So that was good. And then yeah, I did not have one bad meal. I didn't have square meals every day. I was grabbing meals from filling stations. Now, so let's move on to the topic of filling stations in Ireland. On the Wild Atlantic Way, I would say at least 50% and maybe 70-80% of the filling stations are attached to what in the UK we would know as an M&S food, you know, like definitely an upgrade on the BP or food, BP shop, or the smaller petrol station shop. Except in Ireland, they're absolutely out of this world, some of them. So you fill up your fuel and then you walk into, it's either going to be a Super Value or a Spar, or one or two other chains, but more often than not it'll be a Super Value or a Spar. And in there you've got a variety of hot and cold snacks, you've got coffee machines, and some of them even have like other things inside, like almost like a mini service station. So and they all have toilets. Some of them are inside the shop and some of them are outside, on the outside of the building. So in terms of that, way better than the NC 500, way better filling stations. And perfect for grabbing the bite on the go and taking a leak, for want of a better expression. Now, what about scenic beauty? This is a difficult one because in many ways it's similar to Scotland, but in many ways it's different. Like Scotland is just lock after lock after lock after lock, and the penny just kind of dropped in my mind that you know, lock actually means lake. I'm pretty sure lock means lake, because in Ireland they call them locks as well in the Gaelic. So there's nowhere near as many locks, and it's more kind of inland sea and estuaries that you're going to see in Ireland. So probably the scenery is probably slightly more beautiful in Scotland, if I'm honest, but there really isn't much to it. And as I say, it's similar in ways as well. Where it gets really nice is once you start to reach the west Atlantic coast. If you're travelling from Rosslare or Dublin, you know, and you're going west, then it starts to get really beautiful. Also, There are some absolutely fabulous mountain passes here. There, I'm back now in Ireland, where you're whizzing along hairpin bend roads, and you're whizzing through tunnels, and it's just breathtakingly beautiful and a very, very exhilarating ride. You have a lot of sections of roads along the Wild Atlantic Way where they see, like the dotted lines here, they turn into continuous lines, which means you can't overtake. And lots of the roads are like that. So if you're strictly obeying the law, then there's going to be large sections where you're going to be stuck behind camper vans, and then there's like opportunistic smaller sections where you need to quickly whiz past cars, but you've got to do it safely. You've got to be mindful that on some roads there's driveways where people are turning left and they're not looking left, and you could be flying along overtaking. Same as anywhere else, it's just in Ireland, yeah, you're a little bit more conscious of that. And less bikes than Scotland, my experience, less bikes. There were a sizable number of bikes. I would say on the ferries there's about 20 bikes each way. Bearing in mind the ferry, the return ferry was a ginormous ferry. It had 8 or 9 decks, whereas the ferry on the way out from Rosslare, from Fishguard, had only 6 decks. So yeah, some of them get even bigger apparently. So yeah, not an overabundance of bikers, but enough to be waving, shaking your leg and nodding your head, probably at least once an hour. So yeah, there are sections of the tour when away from the more touristy bits, you're right, you know, you've got the road to yourself. They like their straight roads as well, Ireland. There are sections where you're cutting across, maybe like as was the case with me because of the rain. I couldn't do the zigzagging along the peninsula, along the coast on day 3 or day 4. And so yeah, following the sat nav just took me on some dead straight roads, and you know, say a straight road for a biker is boring, but visually, aesthetically, it's quite pleasing because the road is kind of, you know, gently bumping up and down, gently, and it's going through forests, and then it's going past houses, going through towns, just dead straight. The motorway to Dublin is like that. Maybe the Irish just like straight things. Of course, there's plenty of bendy roads on the coast that you can't avoid that. Yeah, so again, I had a bad experience with rain, as you can see today, back in the UK. And I'm not really complaining because we really badly need rain after this drought. I actually want it to be raining at home as well. But yeah, getting caught out on the day when I was arguably going to see the most breathtaking beauty, it's just a pain in the arse, honestly. So yeah, here's my challenge for my next tour. I'm going to have to devise a method of converting to 100% waterproof, because this Spada thing just isn't 100% waterproof. Now in this kind of rain it is, but once it starts lashing it down, then you're going to get drenched in this. And so yeah, I've got to figure out a means of becoming 100% waterproof. Not just the body, but the hands. When your hands get wet, you get really quite demoralised, you know. Important to keep the extremities dry. This I'm used to in Wales, traffic. You see, not much of this in Ireland. Not much traffic. Even on the entry into Dublin, which I thought was going to be really busy, because it being you know, the big built-up place in Ireland, but no, traffic was excellent. And there's no overtaking here. See the double. Okay, this lorry is being courteous. Courteous lorry driver. And oh, this is an impressive bridge actually. I don't know which one this is, but yeah, strictly no overtaking. Of course, white lines can be problematic on bikes. You potentially can skid, so you have to be a little bit careful if you do decide to be a rebel and cross them. Yeah, so I'm just wondering what else there is I could say, really. Any bad experiences? I lost a bit of jewellery, which is a bummer, but that was my own fault. I've lost the protective cap for this Insta, the rubber cap. Also a bit of a bummer. Stuff got soaked, even though I'd taken measures to waterproof my bags, still got soaked. So again, back to my point about becoming 100% waterproof, including luggage. What else? Nothing else bad. I just kind of, as a part of the course, that you sort of accept that you're going to lose something. Okay, we're in Bangor, Bangor. It's banging in Bangor. Just part of the course. You're going to lose crap. Unfortunately, but you just got to try not to lose stuff. Don't lose your bike keys. Don't lose your wallet. A couple of times couldn't find things. Yeah, overall good. No major problems, no mechanical failures yet. I'm still not home yet, of course, but this would be easier if I did break down in the UK anyway. Any hairy situations, any dangerous situations, any near misses? Just one actually, where I don't know if I was fiddling with a camera or something, but I actually accelerated into a bend by mistake and nearly crossed the central reservation, and there was a bloody car coming the other way. Of course, that's 100% my fault, but it was well under control. I just, like you've got an electric shock and you put the throttle on and involuntary, which is crazy. And in that moment, you can't seem to take your hand off the throttle, but it was fine. I took it off, and we're all good. Other than that, no dangerous situations. And I just wasn't riding too close to vehicles in front, to be honest, and I didn't have anybody tailgating me particularly. So, yeah, nice, polite drivers over there in Ireland. I think what I need to do now is pull over and stop my cameras, because I mean, hopefully this review of Ireland was interesting, but this road isn't particularly. But perhaps before I sign off, while I'm waiting for a parking lane to become available. Oh, I've missed my turning. I've missed my turning. Dang it. Talking and maybe I've just added another 15 minutes to the journey. That's a shame, but I am actually coming up to somewhere quite beautiful by the sea. Perhaps it wants me to go back on myself. No great shakes. Yeah, perhaps I will. Oh, there's a parking there where I could have turned my cameras off, but I want to talk about the accommodation. So the accommodation, all of it was good. The second night was probably the grubbiest, but it was still good. The second night didn't have breakfast, but I didn't mind. All the other accommodations had breakfast. My favourite was probably the penultimate in Bunratty. That was just something else, but it was also the priciest at 170. So I got a couple of the accommodations for like 80 euros, 80 quid. We get off here? No? No. So, alright, let's pull up at this parking. Yeah, the beach park was the most outstanding accommodation for sheer luxury and fine attention to detail. Okay, I'm going to pull up in this parking now, turn the cameras off, and then try and concentrate a bit more on the road, I think. Let's try and do that so we stand a good chance of getting home sometime today. Alright, and I'll record a few nice sights along the route, no doubt.